Hello, I'm Reese Kissel.
And I'm Isaiah Packer.
Welcome to your weekly Sports Zone update. Over the weekend, the NFL had a pretty exciting slate of games. The Dolphins had a historic win against the Broncos, 70-20. Miami broke a franchise record in points and total yards with over 700 total yards. Miami's 70 points tied for the third most points scored in NFL history. The Texans had a big upset win over the Jaguars, 37-17. While the Cowboys came back down to earth and lost to the Cardinals 28-16, something we all expected of the Cowboys at some point.
Yep. So for upcoming games, we have the Ravens traveling to Cleveland to play against the Browns, which is a division matchup. Both teams are 2-1. Should be a competitive game. Should be a good game. But we also have the Dolphins traveling to Buffalo to play against the Bills, which both teams are offensive powerhouses, and their defenses aren't great, so this should just be a complete shootout.
Yeah, with the Ravens and the Browns, I think it's going to be a great game. The Browns are really missing a running back. They lost Nick Chubb to that horrific injury. They have Jerome Ford. I think he's going to fill in good, but they're still going to miss Chubb. The Dolphins and the Bills, going to be a really high explosive offensive game, going to be a really big shootout. Last Saturday, Notre Dame took on Ohio State. Everyone watched this game. It was the biggest game of the week. College Game Day was there. A lot of big faces, a lot of big names were there. Both teams came in with playoff hopes. They really want to win this game to solidify themselves as a playoff team. But in the first half, both teams had a really quiet offense. They really only had 3 combined points. It just wasn't very good offensive showing in the first half.
Notre Dame took a 14-10 point lead going into the fourth quarter, and Notre Dame blew it with 5 seconds left.
Yeah.
They only had 10 players on the field for the biggest game of the season.
Yeah, you can't do that. That big of a game, you got to have your players on the field. Marcus Freeman has to know. You can't do that. He's a new coach. Give him some slack, but you just can't do that. In that big of a game against Ohio State, you got to have the players on the field.
Yeah, and of course, Ohio State took advantage. They ran it up the gap where the D lineman was not at. And Notre Dame, despite this loss, still has a pretty good chance to make the playoffs. They just need to win out. They need to show the world that they are still a dominant team. Not like last week where Audric Estime only rushed for 70 yards.
Yeah, you got to get him in.
And QB Sam Hartman was struggling in the fourth quarter. So with him struggling and Audric Estime not moving the ball up the field, that is another reason why they lost that game.
Yeah, you got to put Estime in there. He's one of your best playmakers. You got to get him more than 70 yards. For Ohio State, running back Trayvon Henderson had a great game. Over 100 rushing yards on 14 attempts, and he had the game-winning touchdown. Their defense played really well. I was very impressed. They shut out the Irish in the first half. First time all season that the Irish have been shut out in the first half, so that was very impressive by the Buckeyes. Quarterback Kyle McCord finished the game without a passing touchdown, but his passing yards overlooks that. He had a great game passing, a lot of clutch moments, especially at the end, that 20-yard pass to set him up for that game-winning rushing touchdown.
So the Irish fall to 11th in the AP polls following the loss, which, it could be a lot worse. So they're still right outside the top 10. They're looking good. But Ohio State moved up to 4th, so that's great for Ohio State. They're in a very good spot right now. Notre Dame has another big game for the second straight week. This time they're traveling to North Carolina to play up against Duke. College Game Day will be there for the second consecutive week for Notre Dame. And Duke is coming off of a blowout win against UConn, 41-7.
Yeah, a lot of media going into this game. Duke blowing at UConn. UConn isn't very good, but Duke coming in and solidifying themselves as one of those big-name teams. Really good for the Blue Devils.
Yeah, and for Duke to try to beat Notre Dame, they really have to rely on their passing game. QB Riley Leonard has 778 passing yards on the season, and they also need to eliminate the Irish rush game. The Buckeyes held Audric Estime to just 70 yards last week, as we just talked about, and they won that game. So I think that should be a goal for Duke.
Yeah, during that game against Ohio State, it really felt like something was missing. That player that was missing was Audric Estime. He really needs to get involved in this offense for them to succeed. The Irish also can't take dumb penalties. There's a lot of dumb penalties in that game. All right, my prediction is going to be 21-17 Notre Dame. I think the Irish are going to come up big on defense, holding Duke to just 150 passing yards. I think Duke is going to struggle early, but they're going to make a late push in the second half, but they're just going to fall short. I think running back Jordan Walters is going to have a big game for Duke. I think, he really hasn't had a big game, but I think he's going to come in clutch against the Irish this week.
Yeah, in a big game. And I have something similar. I have 21-10 Notre Dame. Coming off that tragic Ohio State loss.
Get the players on the field.
Notre Dame will bounce back as good as they can, having 11 players on the field and stuff. So the Irish corners, though, I feel like will slow down the passing game. Their corners are faster this year than they were in previous years. So I think that they can really slow down Duke's passing game, which is, the main part of their offense. But Duke will also slow down Notre Dame's passing game. So really, I think it's up to Audric Estime to have a good game to bounce back from last week's big game to be able to have a good impression this week.
Yeah, he really needs to have a big game. Make sure to watch your Fighting Irish tomorrow at 7:30.
Be sure to catch your high school games later today as Riley will travel to New Prairie to take on the Cougars. John Adams takes on Elkhart, and Clay will take on North Newton High School. And Washington travels to Jimtown.
Yeah, Riley has a big game against New Prairie. They really need to show that they are a good team.
Yeah,
they can beat good teams.
6-0 versus 5-1. Very big game there.
Yeah.
And
it should be pretty good. That about finishes up this edition of Sports Zone. I'm Reese Kissel.
And I'm Isaiah Packer.
Stay tuned next week for your local sports update.